Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
The first time I realized my life was basically a meme, I was standing in the back of a conference hall watching my wife present my code as her genius. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Aaron Wu. I'm 33, I write code for a living, and for a few years I genuinely believed that my wife and I were going to change the world together with a small pile of GPUs and a lot of coffee. We worked at this AI startup in San Francisco, the kind of place where the office has exposed brick, the espresso machine costs more than your car, and people say things like "let's disrupt thought itself" without irony. The company's name was Cerebrum Labs. Very subtle. We were building an AI system that could, in theory, map high-level intent to code and actions, like turning vague human instructions into working software and workflows without the user having to think in if-else blocks. Think, "Hey AI, build me a marketing funnel and integrate it into my CRM," and it actually does something coherent instead of hallucinating a PowerPoint. The core of that system, what we called the Thought Mesh Engine, was my baby. Officially, I was senior machine learning engineer. Unofficially, I was the guy who wrote the weird glue code that made a bunch of open source models and our proprietary stuff talk to each other without setting the servers on fire. My wife, Lila, was our project manager. Project manager doesn't quite cover it, though. She handled timelines, sprint boards, investor updates, product demos, half the recruiting, and at least 50% of the emotional therapy required to keep a group of over-caffeinated 20-somethings from imploding. We met long before the startup, back in college. She was the one in the front row asking professors how their theories applied to real users, and I was the guy in the back making sarcastic comments under my breath and building side projects instead of studying. She didn't care about code for code's sake. She cared about what it could do. We made a good team. I built quiet, she made noise. We got married in a small ceremony in Golden Gate Park, under a tree that probably had more followers on Instagram than we did. For our honeymoon, we shipped a major release on a freelance project together. That should have been a red flag, but at the time it felt romantic. When Cerebrum Labs hired us both, me as one of the early engineers, her as the PM to wrangle us, it felt like fate. Two career tracks converging into one crazy path. We joked that our marriage license should come with a pull request template. For the first 2 years, it was good. Like, really good. We'd stay late at the office, eating cold pizza over whiteboards covered in arrows and scribbles, arguing about whether users wanted control or magic. At home, we'd sit on the couch with our laptops and talk through problems. "All right," she'd say, "imagine I'm a sales manager and I want to spin up a new vertical. What am I telling this thing?" And I'd translate her messy human language requirements into model architectures and training routines and a truly unhealthy amount of logging. When we hit a milestone, a demo that actually impressed a client, an internal test where the system didn't crash under load, we'd celebrate with cheap champagne from the corner store and middle-of-the-night walks through the city, laughing about how we were going to be those people on magazine covers one day, the AI power couple. "Don't let them write that in the headline," I told her once. "Sounds like we shoot lasers out of our eyes." "That would be good branding," she said. "We'll keep it in the mood board." It wasn't perfect. Startups never are. Founders pivoted every 3 months, investors dropped hints about acquisitions, half the engineers threatened to leave every time somebody mentioned return to office. But through it all, I believed in two things. The code I was writing mattered. And my wife was on my side. You can guess where this is going. The first crack, in retrospect, was small. Almost invisible. Lila started taking meetings without me. At first it made sense. She handled a lot of coordination, and sometimes investors or clients just wanted a quick update. "They don't need to hear about your CUDA optimization," she'd say, kissing my cheek on the way out the door. "I'll ping you if they have questions." "Cool," I'd say, not looking up from my terminal. "Bring coffee." I didn't mind. Talking to people was her superpower. Mine was making things work that shouldn't. But then the meetings kept growing. Weekly check-ins became strategy sessions. Strategy sessions became off-the-record investor chats. She'd get calendar invites labeled deck review or product narrative and never add me. "Want me in that one?" I'd ask. "It's just high-level positioning," she'd say. "You'd be bored. I'll sync you later." High-level positioning turned into her sending me bullet points in Slack. "Investors want more emphasis on cognitive agency, or can you make it sound more like the system understands users?" "Understands is a big word," I'd reply. "I can make it simulate understanding." "Great," she'd say. "Users don't care about the difference." Around the same time, she changed a bunch of passwords. I found out when I tried to log into our internal dashboard one morning and hit an error. "Password incorrect." Tried again. Same. I pinged her. "Hey, did we rotate the portal password?" "Yeah," she wrote back. "Security push. I'll send you the new one." I waited. A minute. 2. 10. Nothing. I walked over to the glassed-in conference room where she was on a call, laptop open, hand waving in the air. She saw me, mouthed 5 minutes, held up a finger. So I went back to my desk, opened a different terminal, kept working. End of the day, I still didn't have the password. We had always kept things shared. Not just at work. Our bank logins, our shared drive, our Netflix account, everything lived in a password manager we both had access to. "Did you change our Vault master password?" I asked her that night while she brushed her teeth. "Yeah," she mumbled around the toothbrush. "Best practices." "What's the new one?" I asked. "I'll send it to you," she said, spitting. "Work was insane today." She didn't. It felt weird. Just weird, at first. Like when someone moves one chair in a room and you can't figure out what's different, only that something is. More meetings. More passwords. More "I'll fill you in later." I tried to trust her. This was Lila. My co-conspirator. My sprint board soulmate. She wouldn't lock me out of anything that mattered. Right? Then came the conference. We'd been working for months on an updated version of Thought Mesh, integrating the new wave of large language models with our own control layer. I had pushed some of the best code I had ever written in my life, clean, documented, heavily tested. I had late-night commits with commit messages like "finally doesn't suck" and "dear future me, I'm sorry." Our CEO announced that we'd be presenting at a big AI industry conference downtown. Big stage. Bright lights. Chance to impress investors and potential acquirers. The kind of thing that could put Cerebrum on the map. "Obviously, we'll have Lila doing the talk," he said in a planning meeting. "She kills it on stage." I nodded. That made sense. She was a great presenter. "And I'll have Aaron join for the technical QA," she added. "He's the engine." That made me feel good. Seen. The week before the conference, she and I were supposed to be finalizing the demo together. Instead, she started holding rehearsals with the exec team without me. "They just want the narrative right," she said. "No need to drag you through slide hell. Focus on making sure the system doesn't implode on stage, okay?" "Okay," I said. "That I can do." I stayed at the office late 3 nights in a row, banging on the demo, putting in safeguards so if anything went weird, it would fail gracefully instead of in flames. I even wrote a little hidden debug panel so we could see what the model was doing in real time. The morning of the conference, I wore my one nice button-down shirt, the one without pizza stains, grabbed my badge, and headed to the venue. The main hall was huge. Screens. Stage lights. Rows of chairs filled with people in branded hoodies and Allbirds, balancing laptops and cold brew. Sponsor booths lined the foyer, offering swag and vague promises about AI for good. I found our reserved section and took a seat in the back row, near the aisle. Lila was backstage somewhere, probably getting mic'd up and giving the AV crew notes about fonts. The talk before hours dragged. Something about supply chain optimization. My leg bounced under the chair. I was nervous, but mostly excited. This was the moment we'd been working toward. Finally, they announced us. "Next up, we have Cerebrum Labs, presenting a new approach to human-aligned AI systems," the MC said. "Please welcome Lila Chen." Just her name. I frowned. Maybe they'd call me up later. Lila walked on stage to polite applause. She looked polished: black blazer, crisp white shirt, hair pulled back, crisp posture. She smiled at the crowd like she'd been born on a TED stage. "Hi everyone," she said. "I'm Lila, and I lead the development of Thought Mesh, our next-generation cognitive engine at Cerebrum Labs." Lead the development. Okay. Not technically untrue, but it pricked. She launched into the story. How we had noticed a gap between user intent and AI capability. How we had architected a unique system that combines large language models with a proprietary reasoning layer. How my team had iterated on the core engine to reach state-of-the-art performance. Noticeably absent from the narrative, any mention of me. I told myself not to be petty. It was only a few minutes. More slides. More phrases like I designed and my approach. A diagram of the architecture that looked very much like the drawing I'd made on a whiteboard 6 months earlier, except now it had cleaner arrows and better colors. Then she said the line that made my stomach flip. "When I started building Thought Mesh," she said, "my goal was to create an engine that truly understands human goals." When I started building. Singular. I glanced down at the handout. Under speaker bio, it read, Lila Chen, project lead and creator of Thought Mesh at Cerebrum Labs. Creator. I felt my face get hot. In the row in front of me, some guy with a startup badge whispered, "She's sharp. Impressive build." His friend said, "Yeah, crazy what one person can do." One person. When she finished the main talk, there was polite, even enthusiastic applause. The MC came back on stage. "Any time for questions?" he asked. "Maybe one or two," she said. A guy from some big cloud company stood up. "Amazing work," he said. "Can you talk a bit about the training pipeline and how you manage data drift in production?" Every cell in my body expected her to say, "That's a great question, I'll bring my lead engineer, Aaron, up." We'd planned that, or at least she'd told me we had. Instead, she launched into a high-level answer. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't hers. "We built a modular training orchestration framework," she said. "I created a system for monitoring performance across use cases and triggering retrains based on statistical thresholds. I created." There I was, sitting 20 feet away, feeling like a ghost in my own origin story. After the talk, people swarmed her. Investors. Founders. Random conference attendees. She laughed, shook hands, handed out cards. A couple of them glanced at me, name tag reading Cerebrum Labs Aaron and then back at her, assuming I was some random teammate. I waited until the crowd thinned, then walked up. "Hey," I said. "Nice talk." She smiled, a little too bright. "You liked it?" she said. "We nailed the narrative." "You forgot a character," I replied. "What?" Her smile flickered. "The part where you built it," I said. "Alone. That's a new twist." She frowned. "Aaron, not here." "Seems like exactly the place," I said quietly. "You just told a room full of people that Thought Mesh is your creation. I was in the back row. Did you not think I'd show up?" "You're being dramatic," she said through clenched teeth. "I said we a lot." "You said I a lot," I shot back. "Also, the conference bio called you the creator." Her chin lifted. "They needed a simple story," she said. "One point of contact. If we start splitting credit on stage, it dilutes the message. Investors need a face." "I have a face," I said. "I shave it every morning." Her eyes hardened. "You're a coder," she said. "A brilliant one, sure. But you hate networking. You don't like public speaking. You barely look up from your screen half the time. I'm the one they remember. I'm the one who sells it. That's just reality." "That doesn't make the code yours," I said. "We're married," she snapped. "What's yours is mine. And what's mine is keeping us both employed." It was such a cliché line, it almost made me laugh. It didn't. Later, in the Uber home, the argument continued. It blurred into words like ego and gratitude and "I've carried this team and you don't understand the stakes." At one point she said, "If you blow this up, you'll tank the company and your own job. Is that what you want?" Because you didn't get a line in a bio? I wanted to say I didn't care about the line. That what I cared about was the truth. But I was so tired. Tired from the sprint, from the presentation, from the realization that my wife had just publicly erased me. So I shut up. For a few days, I went back to work like nothing had happened. Because that's what we do, right? We swallow the thing that should break us and pretend we're fine. Inside, though, I was done. I'd sit at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, and think, why am I still doing this? Why am I pouring myself into code that somebody else will put their name on? I thought about quitting. Seriously quitting. Writing an email that started with "after a lot of thought" and ended with me folding t-shirts at a Uniqlo just to see something tangible at the end of the day. One night I stayed late, staring at a particularly gnarly function I'd written months ago. The comments were meticulous. The commit history was meticulous. The work was good, and it was mine. The more I looked at it, the more a different thought pushed its way through the fog. I wrote this. Not metaphorically. Literally. My fingers, my brain. That's not ego. That's fact. And I can prove it. I'm an engineer. Feelings are nice, but evidence is better. So I did what I do when I'm overwhelmed, I started organizing. First, I pulled the Git history for the Thought Mesh core repositories. Every commit. Every author. Every timestamp. Our internal repo had my name on the lion's share of the core engine. I exported the logs. I saved them. Then I took snapshots of the codebase, tarballs of the source at key milestones. I calculated cryptographic hashes, SHA-256 for the win, for each file and for each snapshot as a whole. I stored those hashes somewhere Lila couldn't touch, my personal storage, offline backups, a hardware wallet. I went through emails too. Old threads where I'd proposed the architecture. Design docs with my name on them. Slack logs where Lila had written things like "Aaron's engine is finally stable enough to demo and we couldn't do this without Aaron's work." I wasn't hacking anything or stealing company data in some illegal sense. I was documenting my own contributions. Making sure that if this ever turned into a he said, she said, I'd have more than hurt feelings. One night, sitting alone at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. with a mug of cold tea and a laptop, I looked at the crazy web of evidence I'd collected and actually chuckled. I created the code, I muttered to myself. And I can prove it. The inner lion people talk about? Mine doesn't roar. It just quietly sharpens its teeth and pulls up a terminal. While I was quietly building my little arsenal of proof, Lila was doing the opposite. She doubled down on her narrative. I heard from a junior product manager that she'd been on a call with potential investors, referring to ThoughtMesh as my engine and telling them things like, "I architected this from the ground up." In a board meeting, according to a friend in finance, she'd shown a slide titled "Lila's Vision" with my diagrams in the background. When the CEO started introducing her to visitors as the genius behind our core tech, the lion in me stopped sharpening teeth and started pacing. She was confident. Why wouldn't she be? The investors adored her. The execs leaned on her. She was, as she liked to say, the face of the company. She assumed I wouldn't dare go against her. Not just because she was my wife, but because any move I made might splash the company too. And I cared about the company. I cared about my co-workers. I cared about not ending up blackballed in an industry that's smaller than people think. One evening we were home, sitting at opposite ends of the couch, each with a laptop open. We were both pretending to work, really, we were pretending not to be staring at the widening canyon between us. "Investors loved the conference talk," she said casually. "We got like 5 meeting requests off it." I said. "They also now think you single-handedly invented ThoughtMesh." She sighed. "We're back on this?" "We never left it," I said. "You're building a story where I don't exist. That's not just branding. That's theft." "Big word," she said. "You want to talk about theft while you're sitting on a salary the company only pays because I keep investors happy?" "I want to talk about credit," I said. "And truth. And the fact that you keep changing passwords and conveniently forgetting to tell me." She closed her laptop with a sharp snap. "Listen to me," she said. Carefully. You are a coder. A good one. But the world does not reward quiet little coders who want to hide in dark rooms and write perfect functions. It rewards people who stand up, tell a compelling story, and make execs feel safe writing big checks. That's me. I'm the reason you get to play with GPUs all day instead of filing tax forms in a cubicle. You're not wrong about how the world works, I said. You're just using it as an excuse to rewrite history. She leaned in, eyes hard. You are not going to blow up this company because your feelings are hurt, she said. You are not going to poison investor relationships with some pathetic grab for recognition. Because if you do, you won't just hurt me. You'll hurt everyone here. And you'll never work in this town again. It was such a movie villain line, I almost expected her to twirl an invisible mustache. Instead, I looked at her and thought, okay. Gloves off. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten back. I just filed her words away as one more data point. Lila was fully committed to her version of reality. No amount of talking was going to move her. So I stopped trying to move her. I focused on the only thing I had control over, what I did next. The nuclear option, if you can call it that, came to me partially by accident. I was scrolling through GitHub one day, looking at open source projects we depended on, thinking about how clear and public their histories were. Every commit, every contributor, preserved forever in a way that no deck or conference talk could erase. You can't stand on stage and credibly claim to have written Linux by yourself when there's a 30-year paper trail. What if I did that with my engine? Obviously, I couldn't just dump Cerebrum's proprietary code on the internet without crossing every legal line at once. I like justice, but I also like not being sued into oblivion. But there were parts I could share. The parts that were mine from before I joined. The core ideas I'd built independently, the modules I'd written on my own time and then adapted. The design docs that were derivative of work I'd been noodling on for years. I'd talked to Patel, a different Patel, not the one from another story, but with similarly good lawyer instincts, an IP attorney a friend recommended. I laid out the situation, careful, thorough. Do you have pre-existing work? He asked. Something you can credibly claim predates the company's involvement? Yeah, I said. I've got prototypes I built before Cerebrum existed. Same basic architecture, just rougher. I can show timestamps, Git logs, all that. And you have access to your commit history at Cerebrum? He asked. Yes, I said. I've exported what's relevant, including logs showing my authorship. He paused. I can't advise you to leak company code, he said. But I can tell you that publishing your own work, clearly documented and timestamped, is a powerful way to establish authorship. Especially if you can show continuity from early prototypes to the current implementation. Like a trail, I said. Exactly, he replied. You want anyone looking into this to say, of course he wrote this. Look at the history. So that's what I did. I spent a couple of weekends refactoring my original prototype, let's call it Mindweave v01, into a form that was both useful to others and clearly distinct enough from Cerebrum's production code that I wouldn't be handing them our secret sauce. I kept the core architecture, which was mine conceptually, but swapped out specific implementation details. I added documentation explaining the design choices. Then I set up a GitHub repo under my own account. Public. I named it TrueMind Core as a private joke. At the time, I didn't realize it would become more than that. In the README, I wrote, this repository contains an experimental intent-to-code engine I've been developing since, focused on mapping high-level natural language goals to modular actions. Initial prototypes of this architecture predate my work at Cerebrum Labs and form the conceptual foundation of systems I've since built in a professional capacity. Then I did something very nerdy and very deliberate. I added a section called Authorship and Timeline. I laid out, with bullet points and links, the chronological development. Date X, original whiteboard sketch, linked to a photo I'd taken and emailed to myself years ago, complete with timestamp. Date Y, first prototype commit in a private repo. Date Z, blog post I had written about goal-oriented code synthesis, which had gotten 3 likes at the time and now suddenly mattered. Later dates, commits and updates, all clearly mine. I also included hashes of the earliest prototype tarballs and a note that I'd filed a timestamped archive of them with an independent code escrow service. It was, in other words, a lawyer's dream. Once it was ready, I hit publish. The code went live. Then I did something bolder, I tweeted about it. Yes, I still call it Twitter. I'm not calling it X around you. Been working on this architecture for years. Finally open sourcing a cleaned up version of the core idea. Excited to share. Hashtag AI, hashtag ML, hashtag open source. Link, github.com/AaronWu/TrueMind Core. I did not mention Cerebrum. I did not mention Lila. I just showed my work. Developers love code more than marketing decks. A few folks in my network checked it out, started, commented. This is cool, one wrote. Reminds me of some of the stuff Cerebrum talked about at conference. Oh, hey! A couple of days later, someone on an industry forum, bless them, connected the dots more explicitly. They posted a thread, wait, didn't Cerebrum Labs just present an architecture at conference that looks a lot like this? They embedded a screenshot from the conference deck and compared it to my diagram in the README. The resemblance was not subtle. The thread blew up more than I expected. AI Twitter loves drama almost as much as it loves guns. People started asking questions. Politely at first, then less so. Interesting overlap between at Cerebrum Labs Thought Mesh and at Aaron Wu's TrueMind Core, one person wrote. What's the relationship here? Did Cerebrum build on this, or is this parallel evolution? Another wondered. The more technically savvy ones dug into my commit history and the timestamps. They saw that my earliest work predated Cerebrum by a couple of years. Then someone unearthed an old talk I'd given at a tiny meetup, where I'd presented a very early version of the idea. They posted the video next to a clip of Lila's conference talk. The side-by-side made it hard to argue I had nothing to do with the thing she was claiming as hers. Inside Cerebrum, things got awkward. First, I got called into a meeting with the CTO and the CEO. Why did you publish this without telling us? The CTO asked, holding up a printout of my GitHub README like it was contraband. It's my personal project, I said. The prototype predated my employment. I cleared it with a lawyer to make sure I wasn't disclosing company secrets. The code in that repo is distinct from our production implementation. The optics are bad, the CEO said. People are asking if we plagiarized our own engineer. Well, I said, keeping my voice level, that'd be one way to describe what happened on stage at the conference. He winced. I know there's some tension around credit, he said. But Lila has always positioned herself as the architect. She positioned herself that way, I cut in. I never did. I can show you email threads where she called my engine magic and said she was glad I was handling that side. I didn't make this public to embarrass the company. I did it because I'm tired of watching my work get repackaged under someone else's name with no trail back to me. The CTO, who is a code guy at heart, flipped through my printed commit logs. You could see sympathy battling with corporate survival in his eyes. The logs are compelling, he said. Thanks, I said. I did write the thing. I'm not claiming I did it alone. But I'm also not willing to pretend I had nothing to do with it while someone else builds a brand off my back. The CEO sighed. We'll have to address this, he said. Internally and with the board. Lila reacted poorly. She cornered me in a hallway later. What the hell did you do? She hissed. Do you have any idea how bad this looks? For who? I asked. For the person who's been pretending my work was hers, or for the person who quietly published his own code under his own name? This is sabotage, she said. You're tanking the company's reputation just to settle a personal score. No, I said calmly. I'm protecting myself in an industry that's very happy to chew people up and spit them out. If Cerebrum goes under because the story we lied about who built our tech hits a little too hard, that's on leadership. Not on me. She glared. Investors won't trust you after this, she said. They hate disloyalty. Investors love founders with proof they can build, I said. I'll take that bet. For a while, it felt like everything might implode. Slack channels lit up. People whispered in the kitchen. I got a few DMs from co-workers saying, "Honestly, good for you," and a few others saying, "Wish you'd kept this internal." Then the board weighed in. Apparently, when regulators and potential acquirers sniff around a company and find out there's a dispute over core IP authorship, they get nervous. And when the trail of evidence clearly points to our senior engineer wrote the engine and our PM took most of the public credit, they start asking uncomfortable questions at the top. The board did not like uncomfortable questions. An internal review was launched. HR interviews. Document audits. All the fun stuff. They looked at the Git logs. They looked at my prototypes. They looked at emails where Lila had, in less guarded times, explicitly said things like, "Aaron's core engine is the heart of this and we need to protect Aaron's time, without him we don't have a product." On the other side, they had conference bios and marketing decks that credited her as the creator, with no underlying documentation to back it up, and a growing public narrative that she'd oversold her role. In the end, the board did what boards always do, they chose the least risky path for the company's valuation. They fired Lila. Officially, the email said, Lila has decided to pursue opportunities outside the company. Unofficially, everyone knew she'd been asked to clean out her desk in under an hour. She tried to spin it online, of course. A LinkedIn post about choosing alignment and new challenges. Some subtweets about toxic work environments. For a while, a few people bought it. But stories have momentum. And ours had logs. Cerebrum's PR team put out a carefully worded statement about clarifying our understanding of the origins of Thought Mesh and recognizing the contributions of our engineering team, particularly Aaron Wu, whose work has been foundational. The CEO asked me to join him on an investor call where he said, "We're grateful to Aaron for his leadership in the development of our core engine," and I managed not to laugh out loud. Did it fix everything? No. The relationship with Lila was broken beyond repair. We divorced. There's no fun way to describe that. It was paperwork and arguments and memories that hurt to look at. We split assets. She got some savings, some furniture, her half of the wedding gifts. I got the apartment, my guitars, a bunch of ramen bowls, and a slightly battered heart. Cerebrum, for its part, tried to patch things up with me. They offered me a promotion, a new title with director in it, a bit more equity, a solemn promise that they'd tell the story right from now on. I appreciate that, I said. Really? But I think I'm done telling this story at all. They blinked. You're quitting? The CEO asked. I'm leaving, I said. Quitting sounds like I gave up. I'm reforking. He stared at me. We can give you more money? He tried. It's not about the money, I said. It's about ownership. And trust. And the fact that my name is now more strongly associated with this engine out there than in here. I can use that. I think I'd like to use it for myself this time. So I left. No drama. No angry emails. Just a resignation note, a box of desk junk, and a weird calm. You'd think walking away from a high-paying job at a hot startup after a messy internal scandal would be terrifying. It was. It was also freeing. Because here's the thing, in the months after everything blew up, while I was licking my wounds and eating cereal for dinner, something else had been quietly happening. That GitHub repo? It got popular. Not million stars and a Netflix documentary popular, but enough developers and researchers thought it was cool that people with money started noticing popular. I started getting emails. From CTOs. From founders. From VCs. Loved your TrueMind core architecture, one wrote. Would love to chat about what you want to build next. You ever thought about spinning this into a company? Another asked. Feels like there's something big here. My first instinct was to say no. Startups had burned me. Co-founding anything with anyone sounded like inviting chaos into my living room. But then I thought about all the times I'd sat in rooms listening to people who couldn't write a for loop tell me how AI should work. I thought about Lila's line, "You're just a coder. I'm the face." And how wrong that had turned out to be. Turns out, people will talk to you if you've shipped something real and can prove it. So I took a few of those calls. When investors asked, "What do you want to build?" I had an answer. "I want to build an AI system that actually respects the intent of the person using it," I said. "With transparency. With control. And without pretending it's magic. I want to give developers tools that don't lock them into some corporate platform you can only access if you sign your soul away on a SaaS contract." Most of them nodded politely. A few really listened. One small fund, run by a former engineer, leaned in. "You've got the technical chops," the partner said. "You've got proof of execution. You've got a story, whether you like it or not. If we back you, will you actually build this, or will you get cute and pivot to crypto in 6 months?" "I don't know anything about crypto," I said. "I know how to build this. And I know exactly what I don't want to be." They wired a seed round. We set up a Delaware C Corp, because of course we did. I picked a name for the company that came from that GitHub repo, from that dumb private joke that turned into my lifeline. TrueMind AI. The idea was simple: human intent, true mapping. No fake understanding, no black box you can inspect. A layer of AI that sat between people and their tools, turning messy goals into precise actions while leaving humans in charge. We rented a tiny office, more of a glorified room, above a taqueria. It smelled like carnitas and hot sauce and possibility. I hired 2 engineers I trusted from my Cerebrum days, people who'd watched the drama and decided they'd rather build something honest. We assembled folding desks from IKEA and used cardboard boxes as whiteboards until we could afford real ones. Our logo was a placeholder I made in Figma at 2 a.m. It's still our logo. I kind of love it. The first time I saw the name TrueMind AI on a term sheet, I had this surreal feeling, like I was reading fan fiction of my own career. The first time a customer used our early product to automate part of their workflow and emailed, "This saved me 3 hours today," I felt something unclench in my chest that had been tight since the day of that conference talk. I still write code late at night. I still worry about whether we're going to hit milestones. I still find myself reaching for my phone to check Slack when I wake up at 3 a.m. Because some part of my brain thinks the GPU cluster might be on fire. But there's a key difference now. When I push to main, the commit author is me. When someone asks, "Who built this?" I don't have to look around for who's allowed to answer. I'm not naive. I know this true mind grows, there'll be new politics, new conflicts, new versions of "that's my idea" to navigate. People are people. Companies are complicated. But I've got scars now. And documentation. If there's one thing this whole mess taught me, it's that you can't control how other people tell your story, but you can control the receipts you keep. So yeah. I'm Aaron, 33, engineer turned reluctant founder. My wife tried to erase me from my own work. I responded by open sourcing my way out of it. She thought investors would always choose the face over the code. Turns out, sometimes they pick the logs. One day, I'll probably look back on all this and properly laugh. Right now, I can at least smirk. It's like a bad startup drama you'd binge watch and say, "Okay, that twist is unrealistic." Except it happened. To me. And now, when I sit down at my keyboard and open up the TrueMind codebase, I see a story told in hash IDs and commit messages. A story where the ending hasn't been written yet, but the authorship is a lot clearer. In the end, the tagline we put on our landing page feels like it applies to my life as much as to the product. TrueMind AI. Know what you're building. Own what you create. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.